accumulated a lot of tools and my like structural tools in my tool belt. And so it's then customizing which tools we pull out that's best facilitated and in a style that is best suited for you. So I'm not just going to sit here and say, okay, here's your human design. Brilliant. Now we're just going to make you fit into all of these things. No, I'm going to look at your human design and go, okay, with this, where you want, where you're best comfortable, blah, blah, let's slide this in and let's completely structure out your offers to make sure that they are in alignment now with this information.
Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I'm here and excited for today's guest, Mel McSherry with B2B, Better Than Before. Kind of not uncommon with me and some of the people I connect with, but particular with Mel. Yes, we finally had to hit the record button and do this instead of just having our amazing conversation all to ourselves. So I'm very excited to share what we were talking about so that people can apply it to what they're doing. But before we get into all that, why don't you tell everyone a little bit more officially who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my pronouns are she, they, and I am an international business and life guide, speaker, author, and podcast host. And my passion is to help inspired humans, predominantly entrepreneurs, honor their lives and engineer their success through utilizing spiritual tools like human design, as well as traditional business development frameworks. So they can truly be who they want to be, design how they want to design it, and be profitable mentally, emotionally, and financially every day throughout that journey.
Awesome. Love it. And kind of a holdover from a conversation I had, an event I had yesterday. People don't realize they're allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm. I talk a lot about this of how, so I've been an entrepreneur since 2010. So I've been in through all of the phases. I've drank the Kool-Aid several times.
As I put it, you are now completely unemployable as a mom.
Right, exactly, 100%. It's one of those things, right? But one of the things that I have noticed what we have done to entrepreneurship is we've tried to systemize it, right? We've tried to make it into these cookie cutter processes that one size fits all kind of deal. And it's easy for us, and I'm speaking from a personal experience, to kind of bit by bit lose ourselves in that because we just want to be successful, quote unquote. Like we just want to create what we want to create, right? So just tell me what's the best way to do that. And then we eat it, we digest it, we spit it back out, and ta-da. And it's so, I think, especially since COVID, so many of us have sat with ourselves, whatever, exactly, whether that was a beautiful experience or a not so much, right? But it really gave us time to evaluate the decisions that we're making, the spaces that we're in, and just say, okay, is this really worth it? Because now my time is really valuable because I don't know when I'm going to see people, or I can only see certain amounts of people, certain amounts of times. So I think that really has helped us shift back into this individual collective side that I think was the original idea around being an entrepreneur.
So there's kind of like two parts to what you just said that really stick out for me. The first one, let's go back to where you started, where we created these cookie cutter situations. And this is, by the way, you just kind of just triggered one of my soapbox issues with the coaching and consulting world. So yay, you. That there's all these people out there telling you what to do, but they don't actually know how to do it. They can tell you what to do, but they can't break it down. And here's the thing. I don't think that happened because anyone was bad or wrong. I think that happened because people marketed their program, their offer, their process, and they marketed it well on one side. And on the other side, unfortunately, people wanted to press an easy button instead of putting in the work. And we all know it's work. We were just sharing a shared friend and all the work that they've done to get to where they are. They were looking for an easy button or a path. And so they bought the tactic that was marketed well, and then it didn't work for them. And the downside that I'll add to your downside perception, and I totally agree, was that we were creating cookie cutters where cookie cutters weren't needed. But the other downside of that is you're a cookie cutter that feels like a failure because somebody else's process didn't work for you.
Yes.
So I know that, and this is, we have 800 reasons why we connect so well, but I think this is where we both really connect. Is my approach is, what's your unique goal, your unique strengths, your unique person. Okay. And let's find the path that works for you.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. And how I utilize that exact same intention framework, whatever you want to call it, is I start with a tool, as I mentioned in my intro, of human design, which is basically your energetic blueprint. So it shows you how you're designed to be, your purpose, which helps you create your boundaries, your office hours, your offers. Like, it starts from you first. And I think that's where, again, also, to pivot or to caveat off of that, personal development has become this very systematic cookie cutter. Like, I find it's either read my inspirational story and then you're like, I'm inspired, but now what the fuck?
I don't know what to do with all this.
Exactly. What do you do with this?
And as soon as I go back to having to walk the dog, the excitement's over because now I'm immersed in my busy world.
Yep. Or it's do these 5 things and you will be happy. And it's like, but what? Where's that combination?
It's all these shortcuts. And here's the thing, none of what they're offering is actually incorrect.
True.
It's not actually incorrect. It's just not the full story. And what I love about what you're saying, and I guess the point I would love to pull out of this and drive home for people, is you and I agree on this concept that in order for something to work, it has to be unique to you, unique to your goal, unique to your strengths, unique to you, unique to you. However, we come from 2 such different places with that, where you're talking human design and energy, and I'm just truthfully more tactical with that, because for my clients, if we create this amazing plan, but they can't do the plan because it scares them too much, then the plan's useless. So it can be energetic and this beautiful light feeling, and it can also be brass tacks tactical, but it's the same, but you have to have the same concept.
Exactly. And that's why I love starting with human design. So we get that interconnection, right? And then to cross it over into that traditional business development framework. Like I said, I've been an entrepreneur since 2010. So I know funnels.
All sorts of ways that
I know all sorts of things. Yeah. I've accumulated a lot of tools and my structural tools in my tool belt. And so it's then customizing which tools we pull out that's best facilitated and in a style that is best suited for you. So I'm not just going to sit here and say, okay, here's your human design. Brilliant. Now we're just going to make you fit into all of these things. No, I'm going to look at your human design and go, okay, with this, where you want, where you're best comfortable, blah, blah, let's slide this in and let's completely structure out your offers to make sure that they are in alignment now with this information that you have. Let's look at your boundaries with your office hours and your expectations on yourself. Like we were talking about our different definitions of quote unquote goals.
Yeah.
I don't have them anymore, and neither do you, because we have different connections to that word that don't serve us anymore. So what are the things that we can either reframe or let go of that we've been indoctrinated into by stating that we are an entrepreneur or a business owner, and start making this vernacular, this space, this business truly yours?
Yeah. So before we get into the goals conversation, I want to circle back to the other thing you mentioned that I think has changed, why the playing field is changing. And you mentioned COVID, and how we all reevaluated what we wanted because it became horrifyingly clear that it could all go away.
Shit can shift in a heartbeat.
Right? Like, set in stone, zero things are set in stone.
Yeah.
But it also, I think, even from the corporate world, even from, I don't know why this popped in my head, but like the world of Hollywood and entertainment, how things are created, the thing that changed the most is the belief that there's only one way to do things.
Yep.
Because even the biggest companies in the country, even the most conservative old school companies in the country had to change how they do things. And so there were no more, well, this is the only way to do it, because I watched my weatherman from his basement on Zoom for months.
Yep.
So the whole thing, you're right, like there was nothing that kept with this whole idea that, well, this is the only way to do that. So when you take this idea of make it unique for you in order to work, and then you add in a society level shift of there's only one way to do things, no longer the story.
Yeah.
Like some really cool things can happen.
And you know what? Yes, 100%. And it's a scary and beautiful space because nobody has set a standard anymore. There is no standard. It's all of us not fending for ourselves. It's not like we're all jumping up the Titanic. It really is like, oh, I now have even more permission because all of us in the world are going, hey, who are we now? How do we want to do this? And there is no more standard. There is no more perfected formula that you can. There are, again, those tools that we can carry over, but how we utilize them, how we see them, how we've been talking about them is completely shifted.
Love what you're learning here and interested in more? Check out conqueryourbusiness.com to get immediate access to all sorts of additional resources and stay updated on our upcoming training events. So it's interesting as I'm listening to you. One of the things I believe, if you just study history at all, is most things work on a pendulum. They swing too far one way, they come back and swing too far the other way, right? And it'll be interesting to see what comes in the next 10, 15 years as our pendulum kind of swung way into free for all. And now it's interesting because we feel we were really, really restricted, right? They call it COVID restrictions, but truthfully, it was COVID free for all, right?
Yeah. It was COVID exploration, but in your own spaces with your own self.
Right. I mean, there was a lot of things we couldn't do, but now like cat's out of the bag.
It was also figuring out, one of my favorite things is prioritization, and that can be used in very many ways, energetically, time-wise, what have you. And I think that's another thing that COVID really helped us evaluate is really what are our priorities and why are they our priorities in our business, in our lives, where we spend our time. I know for me, I live in the city of Chicago. I'm actually in the city of Chicago. And one of
those of us from Chicago appreciate that differentiation. I get it.
Yeah, right. You have to clarify. One of my favorite things I used to do, before lockdown was I would take the red line downtown and I would do just called a walkabout where I would, take myself out to lunch. I would take myself to a museum. I would do all these things. And that as a primary caregiver to a child was my alone time. And I really loved it. Running by the lakefront was also one of the things that was my escapes. And for a year, I couldn't do any of that. And also I had an autistic child right next to me that I had to now be his paraprofessional, his specialist. I mean, that's a whole
break. They didn't get a break.
No. So I had to find different coping mechanisms that didn't involve being an alcoholic or gaining 200 pounds. Right. And so even that for me brought me back to what were the things that I used to love to do to find that same respite. So I went back to my writing. I wrote my book in 2020. I went back to drawing and sketching and painting and reading and all of these things that I had slowly negated because I had other things to do, right? And so finding again those quiet moments or those quiet things. I love this saying, Brenda Bouchard says this all the time, that it's the little things you do every day that make the biggest difference.
Mhm.
And I think those reminders of it really is those little things that can get us through, or that can build our quote unquote success personally or professionally. And it's okay to let that go for now and find other ways to just reintroduce those sides of ourselves that maybe have been in hibernation for too long.
Well, and that brings me to one of the things we were talking about before we hit record is the word intentional and intentionality. And whether or not you have those little things in your life literally depends on whether you intentionally put them in your life.
100%.
I'm currently obsessed with the fact that the default is always the bad version. Like if you don't eat well intentionally, the default is junk food. If I don't go to the gym, and why is this? If I don't go to the gym intentionally, the default is the couch. If I don't do a healthy morning routine of walking and visualization, and the default is coffee and television. Like, why is the default the thing we don't want?
Well, and to take that further, why does it have to be a default? Why can it be looked at as really honoring what your body, your brain, your soul, your heart needs? Maybe your body is exhausted and it, yes, working out, of course, has its health benefits. My first business was in the fitness industry. I was in the fitness industry for over a decade. That is quote unquote important to me. What I have found is the intensity doesn't matter.
That is a whole nother
another episode,
which I know is not actually a word. Nother is not a word, but that is the way we say it here in Chicago. A whole nother is one.
A whole nother.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yes,
absolutely. Like, we seem to default, and I'd be curious your experience in human design if it talks about this. We seem to default as humans with all or nothing thinking.
Yes.
I'm either, and it becomes a problem as we get older, as we change, as our families change, as our priorities change. Personally, I'm going through a moment here because I'm 52 years old and I can't hit the gym the way I used to hit the gym. The way I enjoy hitting the gym, because I'm too old, it hurts, it injures things, and I don't have the time for it. And so my reaction, unfortunately, is to not do anything because I don't get to do it with the intensity that I used to do it. And changing your definitions of what it means to you, and changing your intention behind why you're doing it. I used to go to the gym in order to compete in my sport, and now I go to the gym to just keep an energized, healthy body.
So with human design, there's like all these things in my head. I'm like, how do I piece this all together?
How do I get this out at once? Blah.
Like, man. So taking it back to human design, one of the things that I love what it does first and foremost is that I always tell people the first session is all about validation, confirmation, and awareness. We know a lot about ourselves. Nobody comes into a reading and goes, whoa, like, it's more of like, thank you, I'm not crazy. Like one person, there's 5 types in human design, and one of them is called a manifesting generator. They're the ones that should never be told to niche down. They are the ones that truly can multitask. Like they are what entrepreneurial traditionalists are like, don't be, but that's how the only way that they can be, right? And I did a reading with somebody and they go, oh, so I don't have ADHD. I'm just a Manny-gen. Like they had been trying to diagnose themselves instead of embracing how they really are meant to work. And within that does give us more, I don't want to say permission, but that gives us more space to explore. Like you said, what does this mean to me now? So for me, before I found human design, or human design found me, honestly, I was part of that girl boss hustle lifestyle, right? I preached that till I was blue in the face of, 9 to 5 is for the week. I need to work this many hours to prove. Granted, was that also trauma trigger that my therapist touched on? Absolutely. But also, it was just how I thought I needed to be to prove that I was quote unquote successful.
Right.
And I was burning myself out. Yes, on paper, I looked successful. I was speaking, averaging about 100 times a year. I was being paid to travel internationally to speak. I was, making 6 figures. I was on paper, everything that I wanted to be, every goal, quote unquote, I had was ticked. Internally, none of it felt like mine. I never felt I was successful because I was constantly, and we were talking about this before we hit record, instead of celebrating my successes, I saw it as, okay, done. What's the next one? And I was consistently looking for that next goal. Yeah.
Check the box, check the box, check the box, check the box.
Exactly. And so I internally burnt out. I didn't have like an emotional burnout. COVID hit me at the perfect time because I think I would have physically and burnt out, but I was definitely on that path. So when COVID hit, all of the things that I traditionally did to build my business were on hold. Speaking was on hold. Even speaking virtually, that is completely different for me.
Yeah, I owe huge apologies to the first people I did virtual speaking for. There was a little learning curve.
Right? For all of us, right? But what I've found is by having the vernacular, I would say, of my human design helped me then understand what all of these words really meant to me. So for me, as a projector, my indicator that I'm in alignment is success. I'm actually the only type, projector is the only type that success is the indicator that you are in alignment. The other ones are satisfaction, enlightenment, peace, and delight. So even just, well, exactly. And even just that of like, okay, so for the rest of, the other types, releasing that I have to be successful to, do you feel satisfied? Because if you feel satisfied, then we're on the right path. So it's redefining that, and therefore helps me rest more intentionally. I know we keep using that word.
Well, and I was just going to say, it really does come back to the intention, because what you're talking about is not just how you build a business. And to use my random example of going to the gym, the type of health regimen that would work for one person doesn't necessarily work for the other person.
Yeah.
So this is like across the life, not business.
Oh, I remember somebody coming to me when I was a personal trainer, and they just looked at me and they go, "You're going to tell me I have to run, aren't you?" And I said, "Why on earth would I say that?" Right. Well, because running is the best thing.
Oh,
do you enjoy? Right. So I was like, I'm like, do you enjoy running? No. Then why on earth would I tell you you need to run? And I do the same thing with my clients. I remember I met a woman in line in the bathroom at one of the conferences, and we were chatting about stuff. And I asked, what's the best way to keep in touch with her? Is she on social media or LinkedIn? And she's like, "I'm really not on social media." "You're going to tell me I need to be on social media, aren't you?" And I said, "Well, are you happy with the clients that you're getting without social media?" "Yes." "Do you enjoy social media?" "No." "Then why the hell would I tell you?"
Right, social media, right? It's different if you're not getting the results.
That is true. But there's those spaces, right, that we feel like we have to be in to prove or to be or to achieve what we want to achieve.
There's the version for you that works.
Exactly. And by combining, again, kind of like our two superpowers of the customization of, how you do it, as well as you having that beautiful, deeper internal connection to understand physically when you've gone too far and what you can do to bring yourself back into that alignment with your strategies. It's just all of a sudden, everything is customizable, as it always has been, but you know it and you see it and you utilize it. And that is so powerful.
Well, and you said the word vernacular, and I think that's a powerful tool as well. There's so many times that really what it requires is to have the usable language around what's going on in order to solve the problem. the definitions, however you define them, but the language matters because it's the tool to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't know the words, then you don't know how to ask for the help.
Exactly.
Or even just to identify what the problem is. You just feel something. But if you know what that feeling is indicating, again, if you know your human design, then you can say, okay, I'm feeling this because I now see I've gone too far here. So I need help with this. Who's my person? Right. And that just helps clarify things without you having to just like blow seeds in the wind and see which one plants and you're just running around like a crazy person.
So that gives me a great segue. If you would like to stop running around like a crazy person and instead talk to Mel, like what is this? I'm sure you don't only want the people who want to stop running around
I mean, to each their own. If that's what calls you, brill.
Particularly successful if you want to stop running around like a crazy person. Yeah. What is the best way for people to reach out and get a hold of you and continue this conversation?
Definitely. So you can definitely check out my website, melmcsherry.com. I always say, if you want to get to know Mel in a glass box, follow me on Instagram. My handle is @Mel_McSherry. Or you're more than welcome to check out the episode that I soloed on my podcast, More Than Just.
Nice. And we'll make sure all of these links are in the show notes so people can just with one click, make sure that they find you.
Beautiful. Oh, I'm also on LinkedIn, just in case you were like, I don't do Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn. Same name.
We're not hiding, right?
No, Google me. I'm all over.
All over the place. Thank you so much for taking time, sharing your story, sharing your insights, your opinions, your information, all of the things, your energy, which I love. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.